Hey everyone, Elliot Richardson, director with the CSCA. I'm joined today with Sarah Applegarth, and we're going to talk a little bit about today some of the challenges that she not only encountered during these crazy times of COVID, but how she's overcome them, and provide some tips here for everyone else that is either working with athletes, but also in the private sector as well too, to be able to optimize your situation during this time. So Sarah, if you could introduce yourself and talk a bit about your journey and where it took you to everything, I guess, just pre-COVID.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Elliot. So I run a training center here in Collingwood, Ontario, which is sort of central Ontario. And I've been doing, I think we've been 11 years now up here running a facility. I've lived up here for about 14 years, work with all kinds of different athletes in our facility, as well as general population, pretty decent sized staff. And we're up in the boonies, and we've been in the hot spot for the last little while with our links to Barrie and the variant that's kind of got us flowing all over the place here in Ontario. So.
Well, that's a good place to start. Having looked at your website, you have to literally scroll down to try and see all the people that work at Sarah's business, and it's multidisciplinary. And there's there's different therapists, there's different conditioning coaches, personal trainers, front end staff. So there's a lot of people involved in the machine that she's built over this time. So I'm just curious, with going through COVID, how did you try and keep your staff engaged? What did you do in terms of staff retention?
Yeah, well, it's actually crazy because I've been thinking about that a lot, going back sort of 13 months in prep for this, and thinking back to March 2020. March 16th was when we made the decision to close our doors. And honestly, it was one of the harder decisions I've ever had to make because it wasn't mandated. We didn't know what was coming. We didn't know what was going to happen. But I felt the obligation and the responsibility to our community. We train a lot of doctors, a lot of hospital staff are our clients, and they were really, looping me in. One of my private clients is someone who does all the simulations for things like pandemics. That's what he's been doing for the last 5 years. So he really knew what was coming and sort of said, I was getting, I felt a responsibility to them, but I also felt a very strong responsibility to my staff. So, when we made the decision, that was the hardest part, was communicating it to the staff and letting them know this was happening. And we didn't know how to do Zoom. We didn't know how to do any of this stuff back then, which is funny now because, even our least techie staff knows they're wizards on Zoom now and know how to do it. So I guess from a retention, a lot of it early on was just communication and making sure they knew that I had their back. I was going to do everything I could do to, plug the holes in the loss of overhead money and try and plug those holes to really keep things as minimal as we could. And then, as soon as we kind of communicated that, we would do weekly Zoom calls with our staff, and we started brainstorming. And it's a really amazing group of people. Everyone's got their own niche thing. And within, I don't know, I think it was even that first few days, we started doing Facebook Live classes, which was a horrendous experience for us as coaches because you're in a room all by yourself. You don't even know if anyone's watching you. You have no idea what's going on. And so we started doing Facebook Live because that was, we knew how to use Facebook. And so we started doing that. And then we started plugging around with Zoom. And then we actually created some wellness programs that we could do as a collaborative thing. So we would create a wellness week, and people could sign up week by week and pay a certain fee, and they could access, I think it was like 15 or 16 different classes. We got our therapists involved, and they would run, neck self-release for people that are, working from home. And we had our yoga instructor doing 20-minute little yoga things throughout the day. And we started collaborating. And that was sort of, I think it was really good for us because from a staff point of view, mental health for everyone was scared and worried about finances and worried about the world and what was going to happen, and worried if we were ever going to, if we were going to survive this and be back together again. And so being able to really engage our clients and put our staff in front of clients. And even if it was on a screen, it actually made us all feel a little more normal. And that was a big part of, being able to retain the clients and not, or our staff rather, and not have anyone kind of go off the deep end when we were all sort of locked in our houses. So I would say sort of collaborating, reaching out. I had a young staff that I had just recruited that had moved up from Brock University, and literally in the fall, he had just moved up the fall prior to. And so we engaged we work with a lot of sport organizations in our town, our community. And so we reached out to the rugby club and the baseball, and we started having him offer some sessions for those kids, because of course their seasons had been like chopped right in the middle. We work with a lot of alpine skiers. And so we were doing, in some cases, some of those kids were out at Canadian championships, U16, 15-year-old kids that got sent home in the middle of the biggest event of their career. And so we started doing fitness sessions for them just to help them stay engaged with each other and have something to do in their day. And so I would say that was a big part of the staff retention, was keeping them working and finding creative ways to collaborate, but also to find ways to draw from our current clients and, offer something that was meaningful to them and that helped them get through their days as well. Because of course, our big concern also was our clients and the mental health of our clients.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like, you did a good job of taking and providing autonomy for them. They already had their autonomy, but giving them to be able to work on things that were already passionate to them. And you found a way to leverage, being at home with Zoom to get people working together and brainstorming. And it sounds like you found some new streams of potential revenue as well too, which is challenging during these times. That's really good in terms of in the business. Now, I know as a business owner, there's probably lots of scary stuff going on in the background that sounds like you tried to shield your staff from. But what are some of the things there in terms of, trying to take care of the overhead and some of the expenses that weren't going away? What were some of the steps you went through to mitigate some of the financial challenges that you incurred?
Yeah, well, I was actually surprised. I just took a shot in the dark in some cases. My husband is sort of the more of a business mind. I'm more of the in the gym person. And he said, contact some of our companies that you pay bills to, Rogers and I can't remember what it's called right now. The music one, In Tandem, I think. Reach out to some of those companies that you have to pay, and in some cases, like we got some credit back from our insurance companies. Rogers gave us a little bit of a help with our phone bills and different things like that. It was surprising actually when we reached out, and certainly like I spent the time applying for every grant that there was out there to try and it's a lot different now. It was not as good right at the beginning, but we helped to get our staff on, some of them on CERB that weren't able to work, others that were employees like front desk staff. They all had to be laid off, and I had to take over that role because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to pay them. So we were able to get some of them onto I guess it was unemployment at the time, and then the others onto CERB. There was a bunch of grants and things. We were able to access some of the government stuff that came later, sort of through the summer and the fall. And there was actually some private companies, RE3, I think, was the Windsor grant that we were able to get. There's some grants for PPE that helped us to cover like $1,000 for, masks and all the shields that we have to do, purchase for front desk and things like that to help us with the opening. So I was able to I basically gave my clients and my classes to all my other staff, and I just hunkered down, and it allowed them to work. And I hunkered down and just tried to apply for all the things that I could to, as I said, to plug the holes and stop the loss.
It's almost like you're going back to that initial time of being starting the business and having to do all the little things. Things have come full circle again.
Yeah, the scary part of this one was I had all these people that were kind of depending on me, which
Mhm.
was, it was a very interesting thing because when I first started, I just put my own head down and I just went for it. And this was a totally different feeling. So yeah, as I said, my skill is in the gym, and and I'm working with people. And then I had to kind of, I don't like writing grants, I don't like doing all that stuff, but I had to kind of just buckle down and do that, and trust my staff. And they did an amazing job with the work that they were doing and with helping our clients and engaging our clients and retaining our clients as well.
Nice. And I think that leads nicely into just, when things start to open back up and you're able to have, restricted numbers of people in, like, how did that impact your service delivery model, or what you did for your clients to be able to optimize the best experience for them? Did you have to change things? Did you have to pivot? Did you have to reduce lower amount of services? What did you do?
Yeah, we had to do all of those things.
Mhm.
I mean, it was funny. We were pushing, pushing, pushing to try and get open. And then when we got open, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about it. Like, I was scared every day thinking, what if someone gets a case, or what if what if we're a spreader? And, it was a whole different experience there. We were finally working again and people were in, and the people were really excited to be in, but I felt this very compelling sense of responsibility that we weren't going to be an area of spread in our community. So, yeah, we had to pivot. And during the lockdown, we started doing some different things. Like, we put some time and energy into building an outdoor waiting room. So when we had our front door locked, when we were able to reopen and see people, I guess we went to red. We might have gone to orange. I don't remember if we didn't get past orange, I don't think, up here, but we were able to have people coming in to the building. So we built an outdoor waiting space so they could sit on little chairs out front of our building, and the door, we would unlock the door and wave them in when time was right. And our physio and our chiro and our massage therapist was able to kind of do the same. People would wait outside for them. We also during that time built an outdoor space, and we were able to use some of the grant money that we were able to access to turf our back. We have a sort of a considerably large space in the back of our building, and we bought a shipping container that we could have equipment in, and with garage door pull up so that we could access equipment easily and keep people outside. And so that was our big pivot, was pivoting to the outdoors. And we were able to reopen, I think it was sort of beginning of July, so it was prime time for being outside. And we were able to get 5 or 6 months almost outside in the back. That was our big pivot. And the other thing that it allowed for people to not have to come through the building. So they actually could park the car, they could walk around the back. They brought their own little towels that they could put on the mat or on the turf, and they could, they just would grab their equipment. If they went inside the building, it was to grab equipment and bring it back out. We have big garage doors into our buildings. They were able to kind of stay outside, and that was a big part of it. And I would say the second piece was that we continued some of the Zoom. We actually turned some of our classes into hybrid classes, and we're still doing it now. So, well, now we're doing just Zoom actually, but we were doing all through when we were reopened. We were doing half the people were actually with us in the building through the winter, and the other half were on Zoom. So our coach has one earbud in and has people there and running music and all that stuff, and the experience in the gym, but then also having people at home that were actually, they could see the gym, they could see all the people in the gym, but they were doing their workout from home. And that was a interesting kind of transition that we've had, and it's been kind of fun. It's overwhelming for the coaches, I think, because there's a lot of sensory going on for the
Mhm.
coaches, with people talking to you through your one ear and then the other ear is hearing the other people, and sometimes you got timer clocks going and all sorts of stuff. But that's the other thing that we've done, is we've abandoned, other than our Pilates classes, which are all Zoom, we've abandoned any of our conditioning classes being strictly virtual, and we've gone to hybrid. And even when we were outside, we would just angle our iPad or whatever we had so they could see what was going on out on the turf and doing our workout there.
Very cool. Now you mentioned that you work with Gen Pop, but also a large number of athletes that come in through your facility. How did you keep them engaged during the lockdown and provide an outlet for them not only to stay customers, but also to be able to stay in the best physical performance shape that they can?
Yeah, well, we were fortunate with one of our groups. Our provincial ski team was designated high performance. And so they trained with us. And so they were actually able to come into the gym through, I don't remember which lockdown. I guess it was the one most recent, the one at Christmas, not the first lockdown. We were totally locked down. But as we gone through this winter, and we had a significant period where we were locked down in our area as well, and they were actually able to come in the gym in small groups. So we had a little bit of face to face with those kids, and they would have a one coach in with them. And obviously we had all the mitigation plans of how they got in the building and all the logistics of it all, and all the screening and everything. It's a lot, there's a lot of layers there that have to happen. So we were able to engage them directly. And some of our other groups, we actually we were doing a combination of either pro bono, which our local girls hockey organization, we are a sponsor for them. And so once a week we ran a pro bono for 13 and up Zoom workouts. We had other groups like our rugby organization where we ran two different age groups Zoom for them, so that it would keep the kids obviously moving, but it also allowed them to see each other on the screen and feel a little bit of that camaraderie and feel like they were with their group, their people. And we had some other groups like our alpine skiing, our U16 high performance program, where we had, we were getting upwards of 30 kids on a Zoom workout once a week. So they, not necessarily kids that were on the same ski team, they were from all different clubs from all over the place, but it turned into a really interesting thing that we've always struggled with in alpine skiing, is the geography. Is you might have kids that live in London, in Ottawa, in Collingwood, in Hamilton, and we found a way that we never knew before or would have never thought of to be able to engage them all. And in some cases, those are the top performers in their age. So they were able to see each other on the screen and kind of get a little bit familiar with each other. And that kind of rolled into this past winter. We were actually in alpine skiing, we were able to have some races up here in Collingwood. So I think it was one of the only sports that we were actually able to have competition this year since COVID started. And we were able to do some of those races. So these kids were then competing against each other, but it didn't seem so foreign. They kind of, even though it was virtual, they kind of knew each other. It wasn't sort of like a scary, I'm going to Alpine Ski Club and I don't know any of these girls. I've worked out with these girls. I know what they, that kind of thing. So those were the big things. I mean, a lot of it was through virtual. We also started a Strava contest, and we had them all on Strava, and we were putting out weekly challenges. There were kilometer challenges. There was altitude challenges because we've got all the escarpment where we live. So kids were trying to compete with each other, and we were using that to engage them. And we had lots of prizing and things like that. And we also did some 10-day challenges. So they could sign up for a 10-day core challenge where you got a different core workout sent from a different member of our staff each day. And that was kind of a neat little project that we did. And, social media things and different things along those lines.
Cool. Well, it sounds like you did a really good job of not only creating a community outside of the gym, which helped everything in the gym, but creating some engagement, but also creating competition to try and keep people as involved as possible through those challenging times. And I guess just last little piece, like what is this going to change for your business going forward when we come out of this thing? Like how much of the stuff are you going to keep, and where do you see your business being once we're through this and back to relative normal?
Well, honestly, I think the resilience that my staff has shown, I think is, I tree planted when I went through university. And I remember when I was tree planting, I said, any job I do now is going to be easy compared to tree planting. And it's one of those things where I feel that kind of analogy now. I'm like, you know what, when things get back to the way they were before the pandemic, like whenever that's going to be. It's not soon, but it's going to be, hopefully within the next year and a half. It's going to feel not easy, but it's going to feel like we've really retained the clients that we had. We've retained all our staff. We've pushed through times where, you don't know if, like, from doing Facebook Live classes to, the things that we actually love to do, which is see people in person and get right in there and, smell the sweat and all that kind of stuff. That when we get back to that, I really feel that I think we're going to come out of it a lot stronger as a business and as a group. The things that we'll keep, I think in some cases, some of the virtual stuff that we did with athletes, I think some of that will stay. There's Zoom burnout for sure in many cases, but I think there's certain things that can happen, like for instance, like with those ski groups, probably once a month in the off season, May, June, July, et cetera, until December. For some of those high performance organizations and some of the local ski clubs, they'll be able to, rather than people having to drive to a destination, they're going to all be able to just, turn on your Zoom link and we do our workout together, or the coach can engage those athletes or whatever. I think also being able to do workshops, like our reach has increased beyond just the Collingwood area. And we have people that, sometimes are up here they live in Toronto, but they're up here for the summer because that's kind of, the Collingwood thing. And those people haven't been able to participate in our workouts or things like that, like from a general population. So some of those people are now signing on to our Pilates. We've got people from, members of staff's families that live in Bermuda or live in BC that are actually doing our workouts now virtually. So I think some of the hybrid where there's people in the gym and there's also people on Zoom, I think in some cases that may stick for us. And we have clients that have actually bought equipment. I don't know where they found their equipment, because that's a bit of an epidemic right now. But they were able to get equipment, and some of them are, they're professionals. So they're like, I like actually being able to work on my computer, and at noon, 5 minutes to noon, I just turn my computer off, I throw my gym stuff on, and I do my workout in my basement with you guys. They sign on because they still want to work out with us, but the time to drive to the gym and have a shower and all that stuff, they cut all that out. And I think it surprised a lot of people. I think as many people that have said, I hate Zoom, I will never do virtual workouts, there's also the other half of them that actually I really like it, and it enhances my life, and I don't mind not being in the gym. I've got all the equipment, I can do it from here as long as you tell me what to do. And they like seeing the other people in the gym and being able to kind of feel a bit of camaraderie there as well. So, and not in a million years would I have said I would have done virtual anything before this. And I think some of that actually will stick for some people.
Wow. Okay. Well, Sarah, thank you very much for contributing your time and your expertise, your knowledge, and your wisdom here. And there's definitely some takeaways that I think quite a few people out there that have their own businesses can take and run with. And appreciate everything, and good luck the rest of this pandemic.
Thank you. I hope that I don't have to be an expert in pandemic private industry running any longer. I hope it ends soon.
Yeah, we all do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.